This is somebody coming to the
Today in the
defense
Council
of that priest guy with the trans video that I talked about. Stop being trans. Transgender insanity. And there I am. And then it's also pointing to this furry dog thing. Vaush's critique of... What does FR stand for? Is that friar? Is that what that refers to? Father. That's how you do the... That's how you shorten father?
All right, so the other video I want to talk about is Vaush's recent critique of an older video Father Mike Schmitz put out on how to compassionately respond to those who identify as transgender.
That's me.
You know, ever since he was little, we didn't have to tell him he liked dresses more than he liked jeans. He liked pink more than he liked blue. And you think of that, wait a second, that's how you know that your little boy is actually a girl?
No. The only way you know is if your little boy says so.
And my little boy says he's Spider-Man, but that doesn't make it.
Wow, very smart. Very high IQ response. Yes, excellent. Except Spider-Man is a character in a comic book, and gender is an identity. So in order to determine an element of a person's identity, there's no empirical measure for it. You would have to, like, ask them. It's possible that they could lie, but a person could lie about their feelings and thoughts in all sorts of ways that no person could, like, objectively determine. Like, how do you objectively determine what a person's favorite food is without just relying on what they tell you? You know, like what about the identity gamer? Like, how do you go about that without relying on a person's subjective feelings and how they self-express, right? What if they just, like, you know, it's going to be one of those videos.
It true. It's horrifying that children are being abused in this way, and Vaush is just wrong.
Abuse? What? Wait, abuse? Asked what their gender identity is? Damn, this must be pretty harmful. Coming from a Catholic too. I mean, you guys know all. Well, with you guys being the expert on child abuse and all, you know, I have to say that's pretty informed criticism.
What the data shows is that in many of these cases, transgender identity is related to social pressure from peers or parents.
Really? That's interesting. Can you prove that point? Because there's tons of evidence to indicate that there's social pressure to be cisgender. Where's the evidence to your point? Because the chart we're looking at right now doesn't have anything to do with that point.
Not from an actual biological condition. We know this because European countries are pausing transgender treatments for youth.
That's not how evidence works? Wait, what? We know for a fact the reason people are transing is because they're being pressured into transing, and we know that because some political committees in Europe have halted trans healthcare for minors? What's the connection here, genuinely? What's the relationship?
It's just something that's arbitrary. Skirts, that women wear skirts, is arbitrary. That women play with dolls or over trucks is arbitrary.
Hold on, wait. If you really think it's arbitrary then, Mr. Priestman, you shouldn't have any issue whatsoever with cross-dressing.
The fact that a red traffic light means stop and a green one means go is arbitrary. We could have reversed them. But even if it's arbitrary, acting in contradiction to them is still really bad for you.
Explain to me how exactly it's bad for you to wear a dress as a guy. I would love it if you could complete that. I would love it if you could complete that.
Likewise, pink used to be a boy's color and blue used to be a girl's color. But social norms help clue us into biological realities.
What? Okay, how do social norms clue us into biological realities if the pink-blue dynamic used to be opposite? What is it cluing us into? What does that even mean? What? The color, well, it used to be biologically the color pink was male, but now we recognize biologically the color blue is. This is what I mean. This is what happens when I was going to say religious types, but like it's reactionaries in general, try to do the data thing. They're like so laughably out of their depth. They're using the terms and they're structuring the arguments the way you would think a scientifically minded person would, but they have no clue. What do you mean? These, well, you know, they may be arbitrary social norms, but they cue us into biological realities. What? Huh?
And so purposely transgressing them in order to subvert biology isn't good for the...
Subvert? So wait, when they switched the blue and the pink, was that them subverting biology? Was that, do you subvert biology if you wear like a pink summer suit into a Florida wedding? Like you're like violating a social law? What does it mean? Okay, this is exactly what I mean. You're religious. Why don't you just say, God wants men to wear blue and girls to wear pink? Like, it's just as bullshit, but at least then you're not pretending to be deferring to some kind of like just do, like, because that's what you really think, right? You don't actually get, it's so stupid.
Human person. We just shouldn't be confusing people like this.
By confuse. Yep. If a girl wears blue jeans, God forbid, no one has any idea what's going on anymore. So I like how the opening was with the traffic light example, where the obvious rejoinder with that would be, well, if you stop paying attention to the traffic lights and ignore the colors because they're arbitrarily chosen, then you start hurting people because there's a safety standard that we enforce socially. And then the safety standard analogy goes completely out the window, and it's just don't confuse people by wearing blue as a woman,
Father Mike is just saying that in many cases, a child who merely has gender non-conforming behavior ends up being shoehorned with a transgender diagnosis.
Something which somehow has just not been proven, despite nearly a decade of conservatives trying to say that that's what's happening, Literally a decade over and over again of conservatives saying, oh, no one's actually trans, children are being groomed into it, somehow unsupported by the evidence, with an incredibly low desistance rate, a very, very high rate of continuing through transition, no.
In fact, that's a high problem for transgender identity in general. There's no difference between a transgender woman, quote unquote, and a gender non-conforming man who dresses and acts like a woman but says he's a man.
Well, there is, actually. It's an identity thing, so you would ask for their identity, and that's the thing. This is like saying there's no difference between a Packers fan and a person who isn't a Packers fan, because you can draw blood samples from both of them, and one of there's no difference based on them not or both being Packers fans. It's again, it's they forget what identity means. If you want to talk about biological sex, then sure, talk about it. Go for it.
The two individuals dress and act the same. One merely claims to be a woman, but even though the term would have absolutely no meaning for him.
And yet somehow there does seem to be a pretty robust, distinct social categorization system that allows for there to be differences between feminine men and trans women, Just not really a mix-up that happens that much in real life, kind of like a non-existent problem. This taxonomical distinction over an arbitrary social category like gender, what if we ruined millions of people's lives just to preserve the cleanliness of this arbitrary set of definitions? If you came into a doctor's office as a trans woman, having not gone through a male puberty, and having been on hormones your whole life, basically, and you say, yep, I'm a man, XY chromosomes, yep, that wouldn't tell the doctor very much at all. I mean, your genitals certainly wouldn't function and operate like a cisgender man's would. Your entire body would be awash with chemicals that make it act differently to how, say, my body goes. Man, I'm just spitting here, aren't I? I'm just laying that shit down. Why let me talk for this long?
No, it would tell the doctor a ton. It would explain what's wrong with his body and why he...
What? Okay, sorry.
He's presenting with certain female features, even though he doesn't have
that. You go to the doctor with a broken arm, and the doctor's like, "What is this? What's wrong with you?" And you're like, "Well, I fell off my bike." And he's like, "No, why do you have breasts?" And you're like, "Well, what? Why is your skin so smooth? What? My arm broke. Why does your voice sound like that?" What? Yeah, the purpose of going to a doctor when you're trans is like a guessing game for the doctor to discover that you're trans,
Ovaries, a uterus, or a vagina. You would tell your doctor, I'm a biological male who takes massive amounts of female hormones.
Well, you would say, I'm a trans woman, which is what well, first of all, they don't take massive amounts. You can't just take like a giant gallon of it. You just take the hormones. It's not... Trans women don't take an unusual amount of estrogen relative to, like, say, estrogen or testosterone treatments for cisgender women and men, respectively. It's just you take the hormones. It's not like a huge amount. Secondly, if you go in there and you say, I'm a trans woman, you would in fact be communicating that you were born biologically male and that you've been taking hormones. You just like your term more because it dehumanizes. But it's actually less accurate. If you went over to a doctor and said, hi, look past my giant, ripe, steaming tits. I am a biological male who has taken oceans of hormones. They would look at you like you're crazy, because that would be a crazy thing to say. Whereas if you say, I'm a trans woman, then that would make more sense and be less crazy. So just see, this is me trying to pull you towards normalcy here. I'm trying to like drag you back to how normal humans think and talk. Trying to help. Oh my guys, the last section here is Vaush comments on priests, and I can tell from the screenshots the rest of it is him calling me a pedophile. Oh, that really did get to him. All right, we're not going to watch that last part. I bet that was the one he was waiting for at the end. We're not going over that one. He big mad. Hey, he big mad. All right? Hey, listen, okay? He wishes the extent of the evidence against the Catholic Church was limited to a bunch of bad faith YouTube videos, okay? As opposed to, I don't know, like a century and a half of cover-up. Just saying. Listen, this has been retarded from start to finish, okay? I'm not giving this guy a platform to just whine about how the Catholic Church is actually less pedophilic than known YouTuber Vaush. That being said, you know, being accused of being a pedophile from a Catholic, whew, man, talk about fucking field expertise. My God, you know? Got a sting, huh? Yeah, you know? If ever there was one to know. Calculating the total the Catholic Church pays for settlements, legal fees, moving people against their total global budget is amazing. Some years it's like 20%. Jesus Christ. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, so that video was pretty boring. I guess the guy who made it is going to see this because he seems like he's pretty tapped into the debate sphere. But like, this was the same. Again, if you don't have any actual scientific beliefs, stop pretending to. There's nothing more irritating than like people who gas themselves up on I don't know, like something that at least mimics the aesthetic of a well-structured evidence-based argument when it's really just like, this is icky, you know? It would be much better if you would just say, I think this is icky, right? Like that would be far, far, far better.